Feeling stuck lately? Like life's passing you by? Get to know M.A.Y.A.
Acronym My Ambition, Your Ambition.
Reconnect with your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. Find your motivation and start to live the life you desire. Explore the M.A.Y.A. My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast at M.A.Y.A.com.
Namaste, everyone. And I can also say Merry Christmas Eve, as we are on the eve of Christmas Day. So I get to add that into the show. Yes, I maintain I would still do a show even on Christmas Eve, because I think this is a good one to help you kind of wrap your mind around 2020, as well as what you should be expecting for 2021, so to speak. I think this is going to be a key conversation. So thank you for tuning in. If you're a new viewer, listener, welcome aboard. As I always say, buckle up for safety. Just kidding. It's never that rough. A little maybe, kind of make you think, make you a little uncomfortable, but it's never that bad. And of course, if you're a returning viewer or listener, welcome back. No matter where you are in M.A.Y.A., My Ambition, Your Ambition, because we are now episode 22. So if you're still back in episode 19, because remember the rule of thumb with the show is you move at your own pace through the episodes. If you're still kind of sitting in episode 19 because it really resonated with you and you feel this is an area where you want to do some work, you stick there until you're ready. But if you're listening because you just like to be with the episodes as they roll out, well, I'm always happy to have you here. If you're listening, it's one of those days that you may not be at work, you may be off, early day you shut down. Either way, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Of course, you can always find past episodes of M.A.Y.A. at M.A.Y.A.com. Boom, right there on the screen as well. You can see that. Of course, I'm always going to encourage you to go there to listen to the shows, as well as there's always a podcast resource section that's there that allows you to kind of get some additional information that I'm including with the show that I think would be good for you. Of course, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel, M.A.Y.A. But if you happen to have a podcast platform of choice, I won't be mad at you. That's okay too, because you can always find episodes of M.A.Y.A. on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, and now also on Amazon Audible as well. I'm assuming you probably already have gotten social with me at this point. Of course, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, M.A.Y.A_Akai, and of course, Facebook, M.A.Y.A. Akai Presents. So that's all the ways you can listen to the show. So like I said, thank you for tuning in. This is one of those days that people are really busy, maybe out and about. Hopefully you're out and about and being safe, meaning wearing masks, using hand sanitizer, all that good stuff, social distancing from people, and not doing too large of group things. That's all the things we have to do, as we can't get away from how we're hearing how much COVID is surging. So you do know part of that is if we're not complying with those basic things that we're asked of, then guess what? This is going to go on even longer, despite a vaccine. Just know that. So with that being said, before we jump into episode 22, we have to bring on M.A.Y.A., my musical muse for the show, who I always love having on. Let's bring on Miriam McQueen. Miriam, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I can see, like me, you have on your Christmas sweater.
I do. It's
I do.
motion activated. Hold on. There we go.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the whole ugly sweater thing has evolved into just different things, the motion, there's music, all kinds of stuff. Mine is, it's a kind of a basic sweater. It's not, I don't think it's ugly. It's festive.
Yeah. What's funny is I don't think a lot of the ugly sweaters out there are really ugly. Well, they're cool.
They've kind of moved away from the ugliness, and it's kind of taken on the life of its own. Watch me rock this one. I think it's just kind of grown beyond. Now it's like festive, creative, sweaters, so to speak. So other than that, what do you have planned for your Christmas holiday?
Just, spending it with family inside, and probably we're going to watch some movies. I know the Wonder Woman, 1984, that one, we're probably going to watch that. I'm really excited to see the sequel, and just some movies.
Now, it's going to probably be movie time. And there's some unique things that have popped up just in time for the holiday, that certain services, I think Sling is one, and somebody else, you can actually watch a movie with family that's remotely someplace else.
Oh.
I know Sling has it and somebody else does too. Not that I'm promoting Sling, but but if you kind of wanted to share a movie with somebody and you have that service, that's kind of a fun, unique thing to do. If it's something you always have done, like watch a movie together. So there's some options out there to kind of, I guess you could say, close that distance as much as you can. So
yeah, that's cool. I had no idea. Interesting.
Yeah, I get to work tomorrow. So,
oh.
Yeah, It's usually not too festive, but I won't say that
Yeah.
again because then somebody will make it festive
Yeah.
just because I said that, so to speak. But
Yeah.
all right, well, we're going to see you on the back end of the show, obviously, for you to
Mhm.
perform a Christmas song for us. I'm
Christmas
excited about that.
song, yeah.
All
I'll
right,
see you later.
all right, we'll see you in a bit. All right, everybody. That's Mary McQueen. She's the M.A.Y.A musical muse. We integrated her into the show, I think maybe like 4 episodes ago, where she picks a song that kind of aligns itself with the theme of the show and shares that with us. So, but we're doing Christmas because obviously it's Christmas Eve. Okay, so episode 22. What's behind your thinking? And I guarantee you, when we walk through this, you're going to find somewhere in here, even if you don't employ some of this stuff all the time, you're going to find you do at least 1 or 2 of them more often than you'd like to. So the whole episode is about what you think drives how you feel and you behave. Remember, as your thoughts go, your energy will follow. That was a whole nother episode. I can't remember back when it was, but we talked about that. Thoughts drive so many things. How you feel. You think it, thus you feel. You think it, thus you act. So at the core of anything that you're doing, and what's really important, if you're attempting to get to that best version of yourself, it starts with what you think, what that entails, and how you think of yourself now. So it's the best version of yourself. How do you imagine that? Like, how do you think that into existence? Because you know what they say, if you speak it into existence, you got to think it first. So if there's something about yourself you want to fix, first you have to really reflect on it, think. There's so many words that can be substituted for think. Obviously, it's being reflective, pensive. There's so many words that really all come down to the core. It's about thinking, cognitive, a list of them. But part of it at this point, as we were sitting at episode 22 of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, if there's a best version of yourself, you must think about what that is. I'd even tell you to write down some of the things about yourself that you feel that you want to change, that you don't particularly care for, or you could grow. And it would be advantageous for you to do these things. So think about it and then put it down in paper. Write it into existence. That's a big part of it. And then think about where you are now. Think about yourself now and how they're different. And that helps you to begin to understand the things that you might need to change or modify a bit. Change, modify, it's all semantics, so to speak. But what's behind your thinking drives so much, everything, not so much, it drives everything that you do. Your brain is the most important organ in your body outside your heart, seriously. And you ever notice that they tend to be in conflict with each other frequently? How you feel and what you think can be conflicted. But it all starts with the thinking, which drives the feeling. Okay, so negative thinking is so key. And you've probably heard this term before, stinking thinking. It's the primary reason that people struggle with being happy. It's at the core of self-sabotage. How you think about situations, how you think about relationships, how you think about yourself. If it is rooted in any form of negativity, it's stinking thinking and it's self-sabotage, flat out. Think about that. The absolute perception, which has to be processed, which then turns into your perspective. Again, perception and perspective is about thinking. It's how you're processing things. Another word for thinking, process. It's used in so many different ways, but at the core of it, if there's anything negative about what you're thinking, it's going to permeate into how you feel or behave or act, bottom line. So what is stinking thinking? It's actually a term that's not new. It goes back to like the 1920s. There was like a sales guru, motivational speaker. His name was Zig Ziglar, who kind of coined the term. So it's actually something that's not new. It's old, but it kind of made a resurgence, I'd say a good like 20 years ago, and it kind of rolls through it. Zig Ziglar is a lot like he was like the Tony Robbins of his time. And so when he was motivating people, or he was a sales guru, so what does that tell you? He had to really kind of tweak the way people thought if he wanted them to buy something. See, the power of thought, people don't get it. You're influenced by it every day, every moment of your life. The only time you're probably not influenced by the power of thought is when you're sleeping. And even at that subconscious level, there's a whole nother type of thinking that's going on. Think about that. You ever wake up with something on your mind? What does that tell you? While you were sleeping, while you were deep in that REM sleep, your brain was still working. It was still processing something enough that when you woke up, you felt a certain way about it. The power of thought is so important. So when we talk about stinking thinking, it's when your thoughts have taken on an unhealthy attitude and perception of yourself, and you're working against you. instead of working for you. So the bottom line is that these negative thoughts, the sinking thinking that you're having, they're not working to make you the best version of yourself. They're working to keep you stagnant or unhappy or not productive. That's the key thing. And you develop an attitude based on your thinking. You feel based on how you think. You then act on how you feel. So there's a correlation to how that all comes into play. So for some people, they might say, how can you know that you're employing stinking thinking or negative thoughts or cognitive distortions, as we say in the psych world? And how you're feeling and acting towards others, but more important, even yourself. Because self-sabotage is the way that you think and then act in regards to yourself when it's all said and done. There are 12 negative signs that you are employing stinking thinking and it's taken over your life. And I'm going to say a lot of these things, and they're going to probably look and feel sort of like depression or anxiety or other types of mental illness or challenges with mental wellness that you've heard. But when I do this list, I want you to think about it. So what did I not do? I didn't say, hey guys, take out your emotion, take out, it's toolbox time. Take out that emotional intelligence, how you perceive, think, process things, and put it on the table, your EI. Because every episode requires that you have your EI on the table, bottom line. So with your emotional intelligence on the table, what this means and how we're using it is that this is one of those really self-reflective moments. Can I be honest with myself? Here's the thing. It's just you and me. So taking ownership of some of these negative thinking things and how they've taken control of your life, and if you're feeling any of these things, is totally incumbent of you getting to the best version of yourself and trying to get closer to happiness and stopping self-sabotage and self-doubt. So just know, by admitting that you suffer from any of these things does not make you any less deficient. It's empowering you to acknowledge the fact that these are some areas that I need to work on that are hindering me from being the best version of myself. So the 12 signs that negative thinking, stinking thinking is in control of your life, and it's a list, there's 12 of them. 1, you feel down, hopeless, and tense. This is really when negative thinking controls everything and every portion of your life. You cannot find a glimmer of hope in anything. So you're always sad. You always feel depressed. The blues, so to speak. A whole genre of music was created because people struggled with life. But if you're constantly there, pulling back that veil of self-doubt, is like, why am I always feeling down or hopeless or tense or nervous about something? Why is that? Why do I not have more happiness and joy in my life? Got to ask that question. 2, can't stop thinking about problems. If you're constantly ruminating on the negative things that are happening to you, or you're waiting for it to happen, that's a sign that negative thinking is encompassing your life and everything that you do. Crying spells. You just sit down sometimes and you feel so emotionally overwhelmed, you just cry. Everyone's been there. And we live in a society where people tell you crying as a sign of weakness, and that is the furthest from the truth. It is a release. It's letting something out that's hurting you. It's getting it out into the open. But once you have a crying spell, you have to ask yourself, why am I crying? What's going on with me? What's overwhelming me? To the point that this now emotional response has been elicited. Low energy. You ever go through those times where you just feel fatigued? You just really don't, feel like doing anything? That isn't just maybe that you're physically tired. You may be mentally and emotionally fatigued, and you just have no energy. You may be irritable or restless. You ever find sometimes that the smallest things just trip your trigger and piss you off? You'll be like, I'm about tired of this. And you realize, something? I just kind of lashed out at somebody for something that was really unnecessary. Now, mind you, that clarity may not be there initially until you step back and do some reflection, thinking about it. But if everything seems to make you upset, or you feel restless, like you just can't seem to just have a moment where you can slow down, you got to think about why that is. Appetite increase or decrease. Often signs of depression and anxiety is some people cope with eating more or eating less. So if all of a sudden there's a change in that with you and you can't really find a reason, and it might be something different, like maybe you're working more, which means your whole schedule has changed, so you're not eating as much. Okay, you can isolate a reason for it. But if you can't really find a reason for all of a sudden that there's a change like that, you got to ask yourself why. 7, feeling guilty or worthless. Like everything that happens, you feel like it's your fault. You know what, that there's no value. Like, you know what, what's the point of me even, being involved in this? I'm more of a hindrance. I am a help. I'm not the solution. I feel like I'm the problem, so to speak. Avoiding others, social isolation. So when you get to the point where you're withdrawing from people and you just don't want to be bothered, you just want to be alone all the time. Now, mind you, there are some people who are more introverted than extroverted. But if that's not who you are typically, and you see that shift in your social interaction, which is being challenged for many people right now in COVID, so it's different. So you may be feeling a certain way about some of this, but if you can think about what you were like before COVID, if that wasn't you, the question is, why has that become you? Getting frustrated easily. That's another thing. It kind of goes with the irritability. Like something doesn't work and you instantly just get upset. No patience. You can't deal with it. Not enjoying things. Anhedonia is what we call it. What you used to have interest in, just for some reason, just doesn't do it for you anymore. Now, mind you, this sometimes could be there is a shift in interest. Maybe you've grown. Maybe things have changed. There's through the lifespan, what might interest you at 20 is not going to interest you maybe at 30 or 40. You become a parent or married or divorced. So there can be a shift in your interest. But the thing is, when all of a sudden the things that you truly care about, like anyone who knows me, if all of a sudden I just was disinterested in cats, you should be like, oh, something's wrong with Maya. Maya likes the kittens. But I'm serious. But if you just, the thing that you would say you really just always have loved, if you can't figure out why that interest has shifted towards just nothing, that there's something going on with you that you need to figure out. Difficulty falling or staying asleep, or sleeping too much, like just not wanting to get out of bed. Again, what you're hearing is a lot of symptoms of depression, so to speak. And some of this also can be anxiety or both. And some of this can go into like bipolar disorder and things of that nature too. So you are hearing some underlying things that would be symptoms and signs of maybe some type of mental illness you're experiencing. I hate saying that because people get a little uncomfortable with it, but let's say maybe your mental wellness is being compromised, if that makes you feel better. Difficulty making decisions, so concentrating, remembering things. You ever feel so overwhelmed or so frustrated? You're like, I walked in the kitchen to get something and I've just forgot what it was. Like you're so distracted and it's consistently happening because you got something on your mind. See, this is what thinking does to you. When you got something on your mind and either you haven't acknowledged it's on your mind or you're acknowledging it too much, it's on your mind, it can consume everything about you. And that's what's key. So when you're saying any of these potential 12 signs, that means there might be some negative thinking that's controlling your life. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Okay, it's time for RTT time, real talk time. There's two things in what I just said I want you to be pensive, reflect, process, think about. Choose your word. 1, have you been feeling this way or any of these ways frequently? Frequency is a thing that helps us determine when we diagnose somebody with depression, anxiety. The frequency part is huge. If it only happened like for a day or two and you snap back out of it, that's one thing. But if you've been experiencing these symptoms for long periods of times, like 2 and 3 weeks at a time, and then maybe you get a little better, but not really, that's when you need to acknowledge there's something going on with me. Maybe I should talk to somebody about it. Or you might know exactly what's going on with you and know maybe what the issue is, but don't want to deal with it because it's hard. The key thing about the frequency of any of these things is, have you grown to accept it? How many times have you heard people say, it is what it is. I just have to accept it. No, you don't. And that's the part that takes insight, but more importantly, it takes courage to acknowledge when something is not working for you, especially if it involves other people. Because often, if you get back in one of those past episodes, can't remember anymore because I'm up to 22, about communication styles and the people who are, who are passive, people who are aggressive, people who are passive aggressive, and people who are assertive. This is where that communication piece is huge. And most people, when they're passive, will just accept things and they'll say it is what it is. And if you're feeling worthless, you'll be like, it doesn't matter. I don't bring any value to the situation. The problem with that is when you get to it is what it is, that ultimately means you've normalized your unhappiness. You've come to accept this is the way that it's always been, and this is the way that it will be. Why would it change? You've normalized being unhappy. And you've set into motion the sequences and situations in your life to always be on the side of negative and self-sabotage and self-doubt, because you are employing negative thinking about what possibility and opportunity looks like. one of the things when I do my meditation that I say as part of it is that I open my heart, I clear my mind to embrace the opportunities and blessings that the universe has bestowed upon me. I will not let negativity, doubt, sadness consume me. I constantly remind myself of that because for some reason, the human mind seems to gravitate to negativity. We tend to love conflict. The movie Predator, which is one of my favorite movies, by the way, he was drawn to heat and conflict, negativity. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people with a human nature that something bad is happening and they can't stop it. They can't not look at it. They're afraid to address it, but they're drawn to it. There's something about negativity that draws us in more so than positivity. And the thing that's interesting is to begin to make that shift towards happiness, meaning teaching and learning yourself to embrace positivity and to want to actually instill it more frequently in your life. Because you're often going to be bombarded with things that are going to challenge what's positive and what's good. Another saying I've said, and I want to bring it back around, is that good is the enemy of great. Because good sometimes will make you get locked into mediocrity because it's working. But just because it's working doesn't mean you're always happy. Sometimes you need to say, is this working for me? Am I happy right now? Why do I feel stuck? Why I have no interest in anything? What's going on with me? Because I've settled into something that seemed good, but now I feel complacent and unhappy. You got to think through the process. So just know this. When you start hearing it is what it is, you're normalizing the situation and accepting it, that it's okay when it doesn't have to be okay. Just know that. So we got through real talk time. Ask yourself those questions. We kind of go through this. As I said, hopefully you've grabbed your beverage of choice. For me, I'm drinking coffee and water. It's Christmas Eve, so some people may be off work, so you can be free to, maybe have some eggnog, coffee with Bailey's in it, a glass of wine. I mean, it is, 2:00, so it's fair, and it's 5:00 somewhere. Isn't that what they always say? Okay. So we know that we have to be careful that we don't normalize things that are not healthy and good, despite how frequently they have happened. Doesn't mean you have to keep perpetuating them. That's the key thing. All right. So let's get into talking about that stinking thinking that for some of you, you've put into the driver's seat of your life. And it's just like driving Miss Daisy with you. But the problem is it's not good. It's taking you places that you don't want to go. It's giving you destinations that were never on your roadmap. And you're getting off on exits that are not helping you getting to that best version of yourself. So there are like 10 types of stinking thinking, or as we refer to them as cognitive distortions, that people tend to employ. Sometimes you may do one consistently. Sometimes you may do a couple. Sometimes a situation may drive you to do one more than the other. But I guarantee you, at some point in our life, we all have done this, and we probably will still do it. Here's the thing. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. So the minute you now will know what these 10 cognitive distortions are, the minute you start feeling yourself thinking it, that's when you say, whoa, 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 whoa. Where did that come from? I'm about to do some stinking thinking, and it's about to make everything go wrong. And I'm going to tell you something. When you find one of these you've used, think about a situation where you used it, and you're going to say, I understand why that went sideways now, because it was all about the way I was thinking about it. All right. So 10 different types of stinking thinking. First one, and you probably will know someone, but I want you to focus on you when we talk about these 10. The all or nothing type of thinking. It's thinking things are always in black and white. There's no gray areas. There's no flexibility in the possibilities. So it's this or it's that. Remember, when we talked about the whole thing about perception and perspective, about that reality piece, be careful that you're not seeing the world only from your reality, because people also see things from their reality. But in essence, there is a truth that stands firm. So when you employ the all or nothing mentality, you may be only operating from your position of thought, but that doesn't mean that's actually what's happening. And this is where, remember, toolbox time 2 will pull out that objectivity and subjectivity. That's when you have to say, how objective am I being with this situation right now? If I was to walk a mile in their shoes, would there be a different perception or perspective of this possibly? That's a tough thing to do, to challenge yourself on your thinking. So the all-in-one people think it's this or that. There can't be nothing else. And that's not the way the world is structured. There are some things, but not all things. So in situations, stop and say, if you're being absolute in your thinking, ask yourself why you're being absolute in your thinking. 2, overgeneralizations. We've all done it. We've all done it. There's a single negative event is turned into a never-ending pattern of defeat. So one bad thing happens, you get, a good example would be you get one bad test score. You see this with kids. And it's like, I'm going to fail all my tests now because I failed this one test, or I didn't get an A in that class. So now I'm probably going to just, be a mediocre student because I'm not good in math, which means I'm just a bad student. It's taking that negative thing and then applying it to everything. Be careful, because children, young adults, adolescents, and also adults, we tend to get stuck into this, especially if we feel like failures. We take one failure and we make it into everything. Well, remember, mistakes and failures are the only thing you can truly call your own. And it is the biggest learning curve you will ever have. Because when you make a mistake, the questions you should be asking yourself is, what went wrong in that situation? 2, what part of it was I accountable for? And what could I have done different that would have given a different outcome? So let's be honest. If you failed a test, the question is, did you study properly for it? One bad thing you can tell yourself, especially with students, and I told myself this for years, I convinced myself of it. I'm bad at math. And I still can't convince myself I'm good at it. But I realized that was really an overgeneralization. I really wasn't bad at math. I just didn't do well at certain types of math. It didn't mean I was awful at everything. So be careful not to overgeneralize. When a single event, like let's say, happens at work or in a relationship, don't assume that it's going to be a never-ending pattern that's going to keep happening with everything that maybe is with that person. This is how we sabotage relationships with ourselves and others. We keep applying the negative things and assuming it's moving forward with us. Not always the case. 3, the mental filter. It's picking out a single negative detail and dwelling on it exclusively so that your vision of reality becomes darkened. So one bad thing happens, and all of a sudden, you see the entire world through that lens. And this is often what happens when people live in disadvantaged situations, whether, like, let's say it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, and it starts as a child. It carries forward with them. And they really don't believe in sometimes that they can possibly be loved by anybody, because their earlier events were so encompassed by negative interactions with people that they've come to believe that they're not lovable, because that relationship, one of the most important relationships they've ever had with their caregiver or parent, was so poor, and they believe that their whole life will be like that. And they see every relationship that way. And often the law of attraction, which I'm big into, will tell you that if that's the energy you put out there, that's the energy you're going to bring in. So when you have negative thinking, you become a beacon for all that is bad. And you also will never see anything that is good. You're seeking out the negativity and drawn to it equally as much. So just know that mental filter piece. If you've come from a situation where it was abusive, it was hurtful, just know that that doesn't have to be your reality, because you have within your power to change the trajectory of where you're going. It may be work. It's going to be work, not maybe. And a lot of people, they're frightened by that. It frightens them to think that change might mean me being vulnerable and addressing my fear. Remember, fear, the acronym, stealing it from Pitbull. Face everything and rise, or face everything and run. And if you've been running, you should be tired by now. Stand your ground and address whatever it is that you're running from. 4, and this is an easy one to do, discounting the positive. Rejecting positive experiences by insisting they don't count. Okay, well, that one thing happened, so you know what, but nothing else, that's not going to happen again. That was like an isolated incident. But we're okay with the idea the negative stuff flows like a river. The positive stuff, we want to make it choppy and difficult. So when you discount positive things, and this is key about celebrating your small successes, and we live in a society where we think big is bad and better. Well, I always tell people, be careful with that, because when you fail to appreciate the little things, all of a sudden a song by Bush popped in my head, Little Things. It's the little things that kill, or it's the little things that can build. Celebrate your small successes, because it is what leads you to being overall successful as a person. You are a combination of many wonderful things. Also within there may be some sprinkle of things that are not good. But if all you do is focus on the negative opposed to the positive, then you know what? You're giving the negative way more power than you should. Be careful where you put your energy and your power. So discounting the positive things, like this was great, and stay in the moment and enjoy it. And don't worry about what's coming next until you get to that point. So discounting positive is something that a lot of people are really guilty of. Jumping to conclusions. Guess what, folks? Raise your hand if you've done it. Raise your hand. I'll put up 2. I'll put up 2. Done it. I've done it. Interpreting things negatively when there are no facts to support the conclusions. This is negative thinking. Your mind will run away with something. And we've done it, especially in relationships. One bad thing happens. Now, mind you, I'm not saying you should not be paying attention if there's a pattern of behavior, because that's true. That can happen. But when someone does something wrong or something, don't assume that the intention was that. Make a decision and let your thoughts be based on fact. So say somebody does something that hurts your feelings. Talk about it with that person, because what you might find is, one, they may have had no idea that they hurt your feelings, and two, the intention of their action was never to do that. That outcome wasn't what they were looking for, even though it did hurt you. Remember, it's that reality piece. Now, I'm not saying walk around the world, with blind. No, that's not it. Know what things are. There was a meme that somebody posted on Facebook, and I said, amen, praise it, because this is true. Stop looking for the good in people and see what they show you. We are often guilty of working so hard to make people into things that they are not, because that's what we want them to be. But I know this person's a good person. But are they showing you they're a good person? And we give them free reign to be toxic in our life because we keep making them something that they're not. That applies to you as well. Show who you are and not something else. So that's why we discount the fake it till you make it. No, be who you are. And if there's something different that you want, work to become that. But be present in who you are. Because when you're not present with your character and your integrity, guess what? That's when you start being the person you don't want to be. And when negativity can flow into you because you're working so hard to be something that you're not. All right, 6, magnification. Exaggerating the importance of problems and shortcomings, or minimizing the importance of desirable qualities. We've all done that. Something happens and we blow it out of proportion. And you ever done that in a situation and you said, I really laid into that person, or I really took that situation and made that bigger. Mountains of Molehill film? Seriously? Be mindful. It's the emotion that's driving the behavior, which is who's driving? Mr. Thinking, Miss Thinking. So before you decide to pop off, act out, keep it 100, think about what you're keeping 100. Is it really 100, or is it just 100 to you? This is about having better relationships with yourself and others. And a lot of it sometimes is checking yourself because you're the one that's maybe not doing the right thing, or your perspective of it is totally skewed. That objectivity, subjectivity is full blown on the table right now, and they're staring each other down when it comes to thinking. Emotional reasoning is the next one, 7. And that's that, assuming that negative emotions necessarily reflect the way things are. No. So if you feel a certain way and you assume this is what the situation is, this happens a lot in relationships or even in work situations, because something impacted you so negative, you really believe that that's what the situation is. No, that's how you feel about the situation because you think that's what it is. Step back and look at the situation as it is and say, okay, I feel this way. I'm angry. Why am I angry? I'm angry because I didn't get that promotion because so-and-so got it and they're not as qualified. Okay, that could be true, but were they doing more? Was there more effort? Was there a certain skill set they have? Don't always assume the negative is negative because it impacts you, in a negative way. It's interesting. It takes a lot more insight. 8, the should statement. Love this one. Telling yourself that things should be the way you hoped or expected them to be. Well, that should have happened because that's what you want. Needs and wants are different things. And remember, relationships are about striking a balance with people. So it may not be what you want or hoped. But remember, part of healthy relationships from last week was that negotiation piece and finding middle ground that works for everybody. So the should statement is self-sabotaging right out the gates if you're dealing with somebody else, because it can't all be about you. And those kind of sayings that happen all the time. It's about me. Okay, well, as long as you're going to be an island by yourself, it can be all about you in that silo. If you're involving other people in your life, you have to learn how to strike a balance. It's not always going to be about you. You have to learn how to compromise and negotiate with people. It doesn't mean you have to be unhappy, because if a relationship is driving that much unhappiness, you got to stop and say, is this the right place for me to be if I keep feeling like this? 9, I love this one, labeling. Labeling is that extreme form of the all or nothing thinking. Instead of saying, I made a mistake, you attach a negative label to yourself. I'm a loser. I made one mistake and now I feel like I'm the worst person in the world. Remember that worthlessness piece that was in that thinking piece? Be mindful of that. We all make mistakes. Like I said, they're yours exclusively. But while they're yours, own them so you can grow from them. And then 10. There's a lot of people like this. Personalization and blame. they personalize, they hold themselves personally responsible and accountable for events that maybe that wasn't totally under their control. So you might hear a person saying, you know what, screw it, I'll just take the blame for that. No, 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 no. Because chances are that's not making that situation better. All you're doing is perpetuating the issue and the negativity that's permeating. So take what you are responsible for, own it, and then let the other person be. And you can say it. You know something, in this situation, I feel like I should have done this better. So I'm taking responsibility for that because that was wrong on my part. But this communication piece, what I was looking for was this, or what I needed was this. So I then acted this way. Just own it. Own what is you, not as what is others. And that's key. But negative thinking, the easy out is just becoming, the fall guy, the sacrificial lamb. This is for the greater good. There are times when this is okay. But if it's always the way, the Mandalorian, this is the way, it's wrong, because it's not a way to live your life. Always willing to be the fall guy or to take blame. So when we talk about stinking thinking, okay, we've gone through what I think are those 10 really key things. Like I said, at some point, believe it or not, as we progress and we mature, we probably have utilized all this negative thinking at some point in our lives, until we've grown to know that it's okay to not be okay, to make mistakes, to not be perfect, to not have to live up to people's expectations all the time. I'm just going to be me. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But on that flip side, part of the growth part, and part of not letting negative thinking take over you, is really having that ability to know, and this is a key thing, that positivity isn't always what you're looking for. And that's interesting. And this is when we get into talking about how to stop the negative thinking, stinking thinking. A key thing to know is you have to first acknowledge the connection between thoughts and actions and feelings, because that should be in there too. The thought becomes the core. It's where everything comes from. It's what elicits the emotion. It's sometimes what makes you feel anxious. Part of sometimes learning to deal with anxiety, and this is a strong thing, is the power of the mind. To say, hold up, stop, 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 especially when the shortness of breath is kicking in. Because I've had some bouts of anxiety here and there. And I think that the reason I was able to talk myself through it is because of what I do for a living. I was like, hold up, wait a minute, stop. Take deep breaths. You're allowing this situation to get the best of you. And emotionally, you're responding inappropriately. Take deep breaths, go outside, get some fresh air. And the thing is, when anxiety hits you, there's something called 5 things that you can do as an exercise, where you look for 5 things in the room that might be blue, 5 things in the room that you hear, 5 things in the room that you see, 5 things in the room that you smell. It's like you're taking that thought process and directing away from the negative experience and pulling the thought away from that to focus on something that's more positive, or filling a gap. Power of thinking. I'm telling you, people, it's going to be the thing that's going to shift your life. It's going to help you get to that best version of you when you become a strong commander and you get into the driver's seat of your thinking. And you're the person that's reading the map and not getting off on inappropriate exits or not going to destinations that you're not interested in, because you're thinking about where you're trying to go. You're looking through the windshield and you're not looking in the rearview mirror. You're checking, your side mirrors to make sure, everything is cool. There's nothing creeping up on you. You're always being aware of your surroundings. You're staying focused, because focus means what? You're thinking. Remember, where your focus goes, your energy follows. So be careful. Be really careful and guard your energy very, very safely. Okay. I don't know what those eyes mean, but okay, I'll go along with it. Tenov, I'll go along with it. Don't know what that means. Okay. So let's talk about how to stop stinking thinking, okay? We're going to acknowledge. The first thing they're putting in your toolbox is acknowledgement that there's a connection between how you think, feel, and react. Thinking is a driver, and feeling and behaving are the passengers in the car, okay? And right now, we got the child locks on because we're working on that best version of ourselves, and we don't want them getting out and distracting us, okay? So we're putting the child locks on the back seat and say, everybody sit tight. I'm driving right now, okay? So first, there's like 5 different things that you can do that's going to help you really stop stinking thinking. So I want you to go to M.A.Y.A.com, go to the podcast resource section. I'm going to add some different resources there so you can read through this a bit more about stinking thinking. I pulled a lot of this information from Psych Central, an article there, because it was spot on and easy. So I was like, good. Makes it easier for me to talk about it. So I use that article specifically as a guidepost to share this information with you. So the first thing is to increase your knowledge about cognitive distortions. So everything we just talked about, learn more about them in detail and be reflective on it. So remember, they say knowledge is power. So gain the knowledge about how these cognitive distortions, what they look like. Because when you know what something looks like, then you know what they feel like. And when you know what something feels like, it helps you to be able to identify if you're employing one of them, which then leads you into step 2. Identify and gain awareness of your own negative thoughts. So like I said, I kind of feel like throughout my lifespan, I've probably used every single one of them at some point. As I was growing and maturing, I stopped doing certain things or certain situations when I really became self-aware and acknowledged the things about me that I didn't like and why I didn't like them. As I'm working on my best version of myself, I began to understand how I was using some of these things, especially in relationships with people. I was like, you know something? Sometimes it was easier to err on the side of not feeling good enough for somebody, and it had nothing to do with me. And that's what's key. That's what's really key. So identifying and gaining awareness of your own negative thoughts is huge. So the minute you feel it creeping up, be like, I feel like someone is trying to accost me right now. My thoughts are trying to get the best of me. Are they getting the best of me right now? Are my emotions being driven by negative thinking? It's okay to have that internal conversation with yourself. But then move to step 3 and put your negative thoughts to the test. Here's the thing that's key. This would be the one step I'll tell you that's always going to help you kind of work through things. Don't assume that what you think or feel must be true. Make it factual. Test your thoughts by examining the evidence that's there in the situation. So did that person tell you weren't good enough, or are you just feeling that way? And if you're feeling that way, why do you feel that way with that person? Are they saying or doing things that make you feel that you're not good enough for them? That you're not good enough at your job? Or are you getting just in your feelings? Find out why you're getting in your feelings, because it's your thinking, and make sure it's valid. And if it's really a person's actions, like a boss, a significant other, a sibling, a parent, does things that make you feel that way, then that's when you find the courage to have the conversation. Like, I need to have this conversation with you. When you do this, it makes me feel this way. Now, I don't know if that's your intention. I don't know if you even know that you're doing it. But I think it was important for me to tell you that when you do it, I feel that way. And I would really appreciate it if you don't. And then you can start the conversation. Remember, though, when you have conversations with people, be gentle. Don't be aggressive. And don't have them until you're ready. You want to be assertive in those conversations. Stating how you feel and not assigning blame. Say, I don't think that's the way that you intended for that to be, but that's how I felt. And if you're watching this, you see my expression, but listen to those words. I don't feel, but for some reason I feel this way, but I don't clearly feel like that was your intention. And you'll probably hear a person say, no, I didn't even know you felt that way. Boom. Now you're cooking with gas, folks. Now you're cooking with gas because you're having a conversation without being accusing. Then the next thing, and step 4, is ask yourself, would you say this to a friend or loved one, what you're thinking? Would you allow them to feel that way? Would you employ that same type of negative thinking towards them? Like, would you say, you're worthless, you're not good enough? You are as good as what you think you are. It's not what people make you feel. Though they do impact us, and they often will definitely shape us to a degree, but then you are in control of what you do with you, because we are always kind of raw material that's being shaped and changed over time. That's why who you put in your emotional and mental space is key, because if it's negative, it shouldn't be there. But 5, replace the negative thoughts with ones that are more realistic and well-rounded. Now, here's what's key. Notice I did not say necessarily positive. What's key is, listen to step 5 again. Replace the negative thoughts with ones that are more realistic and well-rounded. So you may have to do something that you don't like, but it's required. And it makes more sense. Because sometimes our negative thinking is totally rooted in things that are just not realistic. Well, you should do this for me. No, I shouldn't do. I don't owe you anything. The entitlement piece. That's not realistic and well-rounded. So you have to look at the situation that you're in and say, what part of this does not work for me? Why? But realistically, does that make sense? Remember, it's about that negotiation and compromise piece in relationships. Meeting somebody halfway. But I'm saying it again. If you can't find that middle ground healthy relationships, go back and listen to the last episode. You might have to evaluate if that's the right relationship for you to be in. Remember, you can be in love and love somebody, but it doesn't mean they're the best thing for you. Because you might be in love or love a person for the wrong reasons. It's up for you to figure that out based on what you need versus what you want and where you're at. So it's not where you want to be in your relationship, it's where you're at. And where you're at and being present, can it evolve to where you want to be? Does it even have the qualities to get there? Same thing with yourself. Where are you at right now? And if you're missing certain qualities, can you develop and nurture those qualities to get to where you want to be? So that's how you stop negative thinking. This isn't easy. This is about, like I told you right now, objectivity and subjectivity and emotional intelligence are all sitting at this table right now, and they're all looking at each other. And emotional intelligence is like, oh, hold up, partner, slow down. We're going to think through this, and we're going to be realistic and well-rounded in our decision makers and decisions that we're making. And decision makers. I said that as a slip, but it's true. If there are people in your life that are decision makers, are you giving power to people that maybe shouldn't have it? Your personal power, we don't covet it enough often. We often surrender it so easy to people because we're more invested in their happiness than our own. Okay, we're about to wind this down. So here's my final thought. My final thought about this, and this is key. I'm putting up this meme because it says it all. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. It's pretty much that straightforward. Read it again. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. That was Albert Einstein. Scientific reasoning can apply to this, and it's true. You have to legitimately think about when you got into a situation, how you got there, and why you're still there. And you can't use that same thinking to assume it's going to get you out, because then you just put yourself in a box and dug a deeper hole. So that's it for episode 22. What's behind your thinking? Hopefully this was useful for you. So now we get to jump back into the part of the show that I absolutely enjoy and bring on the M.A.Y.A musical muse, Miriam McQueen, who's going to sing a Christmas song for us. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hello. So, I'm loving it. And we're doing guitar today. We're strumming the strings. We're strumming the strings.
Absolutely.
All right. What song are you singing for us?
I'm singing Last Christmas. It's just a classic,
Oh, it is. Look, I would admit full out. I was the biggest Wham fan in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, I was a little heartbroken along the way there, but hey, can't have everything. That's just the way that it is. All right. Here you go, Miriam. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I give it to someone special. Once bitten and twice shy, I keep my distance, but you still catch my eye. Tell me, baby, do you recognize me? Well, it's been a year, it doesn't surprise me. Merry Christmas, I wrapped it up and sent it with a note saying I love you, I meant it. Now I know what a fool I've been, but if you kissed me now, I know you'd fool me again. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. A crowded room, friends with tired eyes. I'm hiding from you, and you're so love ice. My God, I thought you were someone to rely on. Me, I guess I was a shoulder to cry on, a face on a lover with a fire in his heart. A man undercover, but you tore him apart. Ooh, now I found a real love, you'll never fool me again. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special, special. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Oh, dum, dum, da 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 dum, dum. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Yay!
Love it, love it. That is one of my favorite Christmas songs.
So good.
Good stuff. Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hopefully you'll get everything that you wish for.
Oh yeah, I just wish to have a relaxing time at home.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Then
Guess
I'm gonna
what?
get it.
You're going to get that. You're going to get that full throttle. Just let
Yes.
you know that. So,
Yes, right. Low
All right.
expectations.
yes, don't worry.
Yes.
That one, that box is full. It's under the tree already. So, all right. Well, Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Merry Christmas.
And obviously, we're not doing a show next week. So I will see you on the other side of 2021.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That is Miriam McQueen. She is the M.A.Y.A musical muse. She always chimes into the show and shares a song that tied in. But this time we just did a Christmas song, obviously, because it's Christmas. Hello, Charles Edwards Bingham McDavid Sr. Woo! Buddy, you got a name. Thank you for tuning in. Merry Christmas to you as well. Okay, everybody. So there will not be a show next week. I'm actually going to take off, reflect, and just kind of, reflect on 2021 because we're coming out strong. We're going to come out strong with some stuff to really help people to really kind of be able to navigate what's going on with them right now. So with that being said, you can always listen to past episodes, since this is episode 22, if you missed out, just in case you missed me and you just absolutely have to have an episode of M.A.Y.A on a Thursday. I doubt that highly. But until then, remember, everybody, I always say the whole purpose of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, is to help you to identify your ambition and harness that motivation to help you acquire the success and satisfaction in your daily life to get to that best version of yourself. We're about the little things here. So remember, you can always follow me on Facebook. You can always follow me on Facebook at M.A.Y.A Presents. You can then also get me on Instagram and Twitter at Maya_Akai. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Maya Akai. Remember, you can always find episodes at MayaAkai.com. Also go to the podcast resource section. But you can find me in iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, and also on Amazon Audibles as well. So just search for M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and voila, there I am. So remember, everybody, the key thing is that, remember, your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So live every day to the fullest because it's key. All right, everybody, that's it for me. I'll see you in 2021.